So this particular project is a real favourite of mine, not only because I really feel that we achieved a kitchen which the client absolutely loves, which is always the main thing, but most importantly we were able to really exhaust from a design perspective some depth to the concept that also helped to create and inspire the client into investing in something a little bit different. I remember when the client first approached me to look at the design, they had been to several different showrooms and I think just struggled to see something that they felt inspired by. One of the instant things that I encourage doing is going to the property to look at the house and look at the style of the house and get a feel for who the client is. And it was obvious from this particular project that the character of the property was in the Regency style architecture, which was a real statement house, and it was always going to be a case of how we tied that into the project. There had to be a link between the transition, not just into the new space, but also the transition from the existing furniture that the client had already had commissioned throughout the home. So it was obvious that in the living and drawing room areas there was lots of furniture that had lots of earthy and woody grains. I remember specifically seeing some amazing burwood, and I thought instantly, how are we going to tie this into the kitchen? So the whole approach to the house and the importance of, once you entered into the front door and came through the property and moved into the kitchen, that there was a clear connection and transition from the old to the new, but also a transition from and a connection for the kitchen into the other areas of the house. When we delved a little bit more into the history of Regency style architecture, there was a real pivotal figure in the architecture world, Sir John Nash, and he was commissioned by the Prince Regent at the time to do a number of different projects, and one in particular was the urban planning projects for Regents Park in London. And instantly when I saw the plans, the early plans for Regents Park, I just thought, this is something that we're going to use, this is something that we're going to play with. So when you look at the urban plans of Regents Park from above, it's clear that there's some real clear shapes and contours that you can work with. So not just in the fact that there's an outer circle and inner circles to the park, but also how these shapes interconnect with each other. So I was really keen to try and get that into the design somewhere. The Corrion that cuts through the island and leads to the circular breakfast bar, that's representing the paths that lead through the park, and the walkways around the central part of Regents Park, which is currently now Queen Mary's Gardens, but back at the time I think on the plan I remember seeing it as the Jenkins Nursery. With the circular breakfast bar where the white paths wrap around, we decided to use Corrion, but in a way of trying to connect the lakes that surround the centre part of the park, we used glass as a lid to cover over the bur oak that sat underneath, and that for us was a way of trying to emulate the reflection of the water reflecting the trees. And so even though we've kind of set the wood underneath the water, which is you wouldn't usually do, the clear glass is obviously just there to act as a reflection of the park. In this particular project I think it really works well, and I know that the client absolutely loved it, so we were really pleased.